I think we have an amendment to our minutes for last meeting. Ralph, do you want to go over what that is? I think we had to change some counties under the May 22nd.
The thing where the secretary wrote that I would collect information on how ballots are provided in Hancock, Jackson, and Wayne counties. And I since realized that since those, I think, do not have paper ballots, that would be a futile effort. So I reserve the right to change the counties that I'm going to investigate.
Yep, so we'll just, do we have a motion to make that change for the minutes?
So moved.
I'll second that. Favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Lovely. Amended. And we'll amend that on our agenda for today. On the back of your agenda, you'll see a calendar. We'll just make sure that the counties are TBD on June 12th. We need a motion for that. Is this the agenda?
I want to ask something about the calendar, but we can talk about that later when we get to it.
I just want to make sure we made this change now since they're tied together. Okay, so counties are TBD for June 12th on there. Cool. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes as amended? All motion. Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
One abstention. All right. So moving on to our data. Who's our data gatherer for the GIS data?
I know that we had posted some that was on there, but it was mainly what was already on our county website that is public to anybody.
Okay.
That has all of our precinct information, the square footage of each precinct, population of each precinct.
It's posted on Teams, right? Sorry.
It should have been posted in Teams, but then it's also on the county website under the voter registration. Beautiful page.
And I said this before the meeting, and I'll say it again now since we didn't have quorum then. I think a lot of the data gathering here is going to be a lot of, we're looking it over. We don't really know specifically what to discuss. There may be a bit of discussion during, when the data is presented. But I think the majority of it will come when we're doing our draft and, digging into it a little bit more. So I don't want to exhaust all of our time necessarily on looking over data this meeting if we don't have specific questions and things over that. I'll entertain it obviously for a little bit if we would like to discuss it.
I do think that a lot of the data that we were asking about was what we were talking about before anyone else got here, which is that like it's currently in a format that is not easy to access and to have in like a spreadsheet. And so if I was going to send me some stuff and I'm going to try and make it for some format that we can look at.
Today, we're not viewing a visualization of the data. I thought we were doing that today.
As far as I know, I don't, we have a
I thought that
visualization.
the county was showing us that
That's
today.
the data that we have been trying to get put together, and I've been working on since 1 o'clock today as well.
Oh my,
But
good for your work.
it can't be done within probably a day or two. It's going to be a long process. The amount of data it is, because it is each precinct, how many people showed up on election day, how many people showed up during early voting, how many people were registered in that precinct, and it's every single bit of information that you can think of. And then I was actually just granted access to that yesterday afternoon when I was at a council meeting. So I was then getting into it today, thinking that it was going to be quick, easy, click on it, pulled up a spreadsheet like how most of our files on there does, and it was not. So
I think so. What is the plan that you're going to, but it's in a spreadsheet, you're going to
I'm going to get all of it together, put into a spreadsheet, because right now it's, you look at it, you can copy it and paste it, but as soon as you do, none of the numbers are there. So it's going to be having to go in manually, enter each of the numbers for each of those precincts, and then I'll send it over so that we can create it into a actual diagram visual, so it's easier to look into it.
think looking at it as a visualization will make it easier for everybody, but I also think perhaps spreading out data throughout all of our meetings, just like adding it as maybe an agenda item that we look at this year's primary, this year's, maybe as it pertains to, because I know next meeting, we're gonna be looking over university stuff. It's only natural probably to review university precincts and their data and see what traffic looks like and all that. So I think a lot of that's gonna happen naturally. So what we need to do is get it all gathered in a central location, and then we all have access to it. We can look over it whenever we want and then pull upon it during these meetings when we need it. That's my vision, just thinking about it and thinking about the last time you looked at data and how that kind of went. Does anybody have any comments there and suggestions? I'm open to it. I want to make sure that we're efficient. We do have 2016 data for as far as registered voters, election day, absentee voting, for both the primary and the general.
And on that 2016, anything before 2020 was not categorized as precinct. So 2016, that's the only data that we'll have for that election. But on the rest after 2020, all of them were done by precinct of early voting versus election day.
Absentee was high in general. Six of my comments, really. That's kind of what I mean.
Yeah, looking at,
What does it mean?
Or sorry, they're a little bit on the back.
Yeah.
3 to 6 numbers, right? So it's not enough for us.
Yeah.
To make any recommendations based on this.
No, and I think it's just something we now put into our pockets and move forward having the data, but we definitely need more data, and I think we've identified that.
You guys know which election you would want to look at? This 2020 honestly isn't efficient on that whatsoever.
So precinct reporting wasn't a thing at all before 2016, like 2016.
Before 2016, there was not any data pulled that was by precinct. It was just straightforward absentee versus general, not general, election day.
Probably 2022. Don't know.
I'm really thinking 2020 would still be good because we can still see the numbers will be higher, but the concentrations of where those numbers came from probably will be about the same.
Still just a lot of them will be early voters, but it will
Yes,
still be
but
good
if-
precinct data as to who
Right.
votes. Yeah, I see what you're saying. It gives us a good representation of who goes out to vote. So not pay as much attention on how they voted. Yeah, so 2020, 2022. And then maybe 2023, if we want to look at municipal, that one's gonna be weird because of the referendum, but
Yeah, but I think it's probably worth it.
yeah, we can definitely look at the,
I'm gonna try to look at like the high turnout elections just to say where
maximum volume.
volume at both.
Correct.
So we probably don't need 2022 just because it's.
I think we could get the picture painted without it.
Yeah.
Because I think you could look at 2022 or 2020 to see how the city votes. You don't really need to look at the city election to see how the city votes.
I do agree.
Because I don't think the city felt motivated necessarily to go vote either. Right, I think there was maybe a district that was the case. And even turnout was low in the district where there was a contested race, so I think the participation was low. And it was low in 2019 too.
Primary and general are 2 different things too. So there was some
This is true.
different kind of activity in the primary. I'm not saying that was a monumental turnout either, but
23
Kind of
primary
depends.
might not be bad to look at as municipal because I don't know if our plans change, if we can create different plans based off of presidential, midterm and municipal years or not, but.
That would be a good question for the election board.
and
Because I mean,
want the plans
it's
to
just slim it down.
even if we make a recommendation that is incorporating all of that input, that's just one more streamlined recommendation that could be helpful for all types of elections. if we haven't even looked at a municipal election there,
Right.
then it's hard to feel like we have our bases covered to make a recommendation that could impact a municipal election.
Yeah.
I might be wrong. It might be that once we look at it, we felt like there weren't any new insights gained from the municipal election.
In that vein, the,
I'd still want to see it.
yeah, like 20 is, I mean, there was a 2019 one, but I think that like 2018 as a year might also be interesting. Just, it was before
It was a
COVID.
high volume year. Yeah.
It's just, it's like I don't know. COVID makes it hard to know if that would be useful because I don't know if voting trends have changed significantly because of that. But I think that like if that is the only year that we can get pre-COVID that the precinct data from, then we should do it. Even though it's not a presidential election.
I agree, because that was a very high turnout year, so that would kind of be our extreme situation, I feel like on our votes, like.
Yeah.
We need to know what. As much as we need to look at the small municipal elections, we also need to look at the really big elections, that was larger.
When was the last time our polls were cleaned up here in Monroe County?
The Secretary of State does that as far as.
I think that's something I want you to weigh in on.
And the reason I'm throwing this out is a new bill was just passed and signed that would require everyone, every place to clean up their rolls. Once that's done, I would assume transient counties would probably have a substantially different number. You know, I mean, when I say transient counties,
I mean,
Terre
the
Haute,
rules-
South Bend, Muncie, for God's sake.
Right.
Okay.
Per federal law, the rolls are clean. And so I really want the Monroe County Clerk's Office to weigh in more on that, even if you need to update us next time if you don't have the answer at your fingertips, but I'm not comfortable with any kind of statement being made suggesting that they're not cleaned because
No,
I don't
that's-
think
that's
that's
not-
what you said.
That's why I was
I
asked
wouldn't
when it
even go
was.
to that. What I said was, if we start thinking, okay, we need to put things here, here, and here based on numbers, if those numbers change substantially after that's done, and I haven't read the law, I've read a synopsis of the law,
Right,
the new law.
same here.
Okay, that might change things substantially. And
Mhm.
there's no reason to do and then have to be undone based on something of that nature.
Demographics of the county keep changing. I mean, there's.
Yeah.
Yeah,
census.
Well, yeah, the demographics of the county, though, believe it or not, has seemed pretty stable. I know that every time we do, when we had primary day and election day and people, it looks like we have lower turnout in Monroe than some of the other counties. We almost have to, when I was on the election board, look at it, take it with a grain of salt, because a lot of those voters, or what I call zombie voters, they've moved. And so, I mean, I think what Nanny's saying is that we have to figure out kind of how many, where they are. A majority of them are going to be on campus just because they move.
Except they're not living on campus
Right.
as much any longer,
That's,
which is,
yeah.
well, unless you
And
live around those places.
Did they, did they move out of the county, or they just going to school here, or did they stay here? And we've found, you can look back when we've done the purges, there's a good chunk of a drop in registered voters, and it goes right back up to about the same amount
When school starts.
when school starts again.
Just to what happens here, because Indiana, on top of what the federal government does, has their own law, obviously, regarding how often we clean our rolls, and that's what I was trying to figure out. Depending, I don't know what that currently is, and I'm sure we're compliant with whatever that is. I would hope we're
I thought-
compliant with whatever that
I
is.
thought federal law was every 4 years, but I could be mistaken.
That's a good question, I think, going forward, because that's almost, I mean, that could change the people we're working with, because, and that's not a new thing, because there's other legislation that's going active July 1. That's going to change other aspects of how we're going to have to do voting in Monroe County, and obviously, we're gonna have to talk about that as well at some point. Because I know they poll the election workers, and their pay and stuff. That's subject to change. How they get paid, there's the law to make them contractors, the early voting folks. That has to happen July 1. And so all of that, I think, comes into this at some point. So maybe we have a new law day that we get to talk about as we're calling them in our meetings. But I think that that's legitimate to think about.
At one point, we had a question which was, do we just sort of have a blanket plan that says you need X number of vote centers and these are the locations we recommend? Or do we say you need X number of vote centers for a presidential election year and X minus Y vote centers for a municipal election year? And so we don't know the answer to, and I think Kylie was suggesting that would be something Ami could ask of the election board. to
That's
see
definitely
if
something
they want
that,
a sort of a one size fits all
yeah,
number of vote centers,
versus or
a scaled down version for
non-presidential
election
elections.
years.
I also, that's also part of that is related to why I was asking those questions over email. And thank you, Ralph, for humoring me and for already super quickly providing some of the information. So one of the things I'm wondering about is current active voters. And by that, I mean the number, the around 10K figure you gave, Ralph, was about turnout, right?
Yeah.
From November. So I'm wondering something that I think is a
we
little
have a
different.
report that we can pull that has actual active versus inactive versus registered.
Great, because I think I'm wondering, the turnout's helpful. I'm also wondering non-inactive, basically, because that's probably bigger, way bigger than 10K, I hope. I think. So I want to know that too, because that's gonna come into play also relating to what's a bare minimum of what a votes, of how many vote centers there would have to be. I don't think,
For anyone that is an actively registered, I should say, yeah.
well, it legally relates to the active voter number. I don't think any of us are trying to talk about bare minimum in terms of our aspirations, but we've all been talking about what is the consequence for the future.
Yeah.
So I think we want to know what's our floor that we could be working with for the future. So I think that goes back to the active voter number, meaning not inactive.
Yep.
So just another point. It's not like that would create our whole plan, but it's
No,
another point.
and that's an easy one to pull.
No.
The only thing for us is it's easier to pull that when it's closer to the election or closer to the deadline of registration, because then you have a more accurate number of registered versus active.
Because theoretically, people will.
Yeah.
Come back and be like, I am still active, yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah, and our deadline for that is the April 9th. So it's long for that following meeting.
I think that would be great. I think that would help. Meeting the next day.
As long as we're not gonna play.
There's a meeting the next day.
There is a meeting the next day.
Nothing.
So there's registered voters and then some of them are inactive because although their registration is still in effect, they have not voted recently.
There's like a certain amount of years that if they have not voted, then they go into the inactive portal. But they're still a registered voter until otherwise moved.
So what we're working on is that data for 2020 and 2022
2023 primary.
and 2020.
And then we discussed 2018 too.
But that these, for those years, Kylie is going to,
Anything after 2020, I will have the data for each precinct.
spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't have the precinct data for 2018.
No, 2016, 18, and
Gotcha.
yeah, 16 and 18 would be like how this was that I provided
Gotcha, that
to
makes
on
sense.
today.
So 2018 probably
So
actually.
you don't have a breakdown, you're saying for these.
For 2016 and 18, I don't have a breakdown per precinct.
Okay.
And this is what we have for
So
anything
2020
before 2021.
is actually the more useful.
I think we already have the turnout number for 2018 on that.
Yeah,
graph.
so, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, just 2020, 2022 and the 2023 primary. For precinct data. Then we can. Is there anything else under the precinct data tab here on our agenda? Anybody wants to discuss? Ansley. All right, the calendar. This is basically just what we talked about last meeting as far as how we wanted to get a start on how we're we wanted to get a game plan last meeting. I think this was our start with that game plan. More than happy to change anything. There's one thing I already want to change, and I think we've talked about it here and there, but that is our May 8th meeting. I think it's very advantageous for us to move it.
I want to hear the rest of what.
I know. That's basically all I have. I think other committee members have expressed that as well, and I'm glad you're on board, and I hope others are too. I don't know if we want to move it to the next week. Look at our calendars before we put a motion out there to move it.
You said
May 8th, moving that meeting, because that is the day after the primary.
okay.
Would it be easier just to skip it than move it that way? It already coincides with the publicly advertised schedule.
I would be open to that as well. The election board seems to, they say we can do this. Take their word for it.
I think as long as we let them know, hey, we're gonna be skipping this meeting. They'll obviously understand what it being the day after the election.
Seems like they were on board with that. I didn't show. Everybody's on this train and we want, so do we want to skip it or do we want to move it? Is there a,
Make a motion, we skip the meeting.
I'll second it.
all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Lovely. May 8th is skipped. Let's then just move all of our, so we'll do special groups starting the May 22nd and move everything there by a day if that's okay. And there, it says the TBD, but we do have a meeting date for our second one in June, so.
June 26th, yeah.
Yeah,
so-
we can input that. And move everything over. And I don't think this is a bad thing to have on the agendas going forward, and I'm happy to keep it up because it helps me write up the agenda and know what I'm supposed to put on next.
Is the idea, it's very helpful. I
Yes, I
appreciate
love
this idea to have this be part of the agenda. I couldn't find such a.
Yeah, so that's another thing I
My
wanted to
point is more going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I just, I plan to have it on the back of the agenda basically as a calendar reminder of where we're going.
Is it also, is the thought also to have it part of the agenda meeting, what's shared out?
Yeah, what's published.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be public, and I think that it would become an agenda item as it was today to talk about, review the calendar. I think I'll keep that in case we need to do something like we did today and move anything around. I think that gives us the opportunity to do that. And if we don't, then we just give it.
So are we going to talk about the 10th and the 24th a little bit more?
Sure.
Can we?
Yeah, yeah.
So when should we fit in a presentation? But I totally understand it's not feasible for today. Thank you for trying. When will we fit in a rescheduled presentation and going over visualization of Monroe County data? How might that affect the calendar? And then I'm also asking because in the minutes, there's a mention of what I have asked previously that could be fit into a portion of a meeting presentation about considerations for vote centers, for vote center models. And I would think that I should wait on that to take in the Monroe County data.
So
But
my
I'm wondering how this all might fit together.
idea for that was to put you under like the special groups day. That was where we have all the testimonials from folks. Since you have the elections background, that would be your special group is, elections background. And then I know Hal wanted to do basically give a testimonial from his perspective with the IED folks. So that's that data I'm thinking of, which would then be pushed to May 22nd.
Okay.
And so we would review that data. I'm hopeful that we'll get an opportunity, like,
I think that makes sense. I can understand.
and what I'm thinking is there'll be like 10 to 15-minute presentations. We can have a couple of them during the meeting. If we think we need to have more groups come in, if there's then we can, schedule another date to do that.
Yeah.
And so my goal would be then to have that data by that date. Hopefully we'll have that by our April 10th meeting. We can all review that data independently. And we don't necessarily have to discuss it here. But we can put a line item on the agenda for both the 10th and the 24th to discuss any data that we have come across, because I think we're gonna be slowly getting it in between those meetings. And so if we wanna take a break to talk about anything pertaining that data to that data, more than willing to do that. Especially, I mean, the university day, as I'm calling it, on April 10th, I think that we'll definitely be looking at the university precinct data if we have it available by then, just inevitably.
And then that April
Makes sense.
10th day is moving to the 24th, correct?
No, April 10th will stay the same. It'll be everything after May 8th. So May 8th.
That's what
date.
yep.
It just may be data too.
Yeah.
Which I understand.
Now, those that want to speak at that time, should the group, because one of the groups that we really haven't talked about are candidates. This will greatly impact candidates, probably negatively more than anyone. So we might want to hear about that.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, I'm more than welcome, or I'm more than willing to entertain what special groups we want to cover. I mean, I have IDD written and I had you in the back of my mind. I didn't specifically say that here. You are covered and other groups.
Can you say more, if you feel like this is an okay tangent?
Yeah.
Can you say more about why you think it would be negative?
Okay, as an example, I'm on the town council in Ellettsville. I can usually do a race for that. 2 or 3 signs, have 2 or 3 poll workers, there's 2 polling places, or even 1. Now I'm countywide on election day. I have to have 50 some signs.
And you serve in a district.
Yes.
Okay, I understand.
And so every township person, everybody, we're talking about the cost of running for office exponentially. They all have to run countywide. And that's something I don't know if is taken in consideration too much with vote centers, because that changes the dynamic of candidacies. And it's gonna, the people that want to run, it's gonna make them think twice when it's, well, yeah, normally a couple $100 to do it, but now you need probably a couple thousand to run for an office that pays for, $2,000 a year.
I also think that affects voters too, like exactly what you said, that I had never thought about like that, because then some people won't run.
Right.
So it affects. voters too.
Yes, exactly. It scares them out of, well, that's a lot of work. I can't find that many people. I can't come up with that much money.
Crazy.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think candidates is a really good group to consider as a whole, just throughout this process, because I mean, they're the ones on the ballot. We're considering the voters, obviously. That's why
Right.
we're doing this whole thing. And I think we talked about once school's back in session, having people coming into these meetings. I think that's what the election board wanted. So that will definitely be geared towards voters. And we'll have several sessions, I think, of that, of people coming in, talk to us.
So what is university, about University Day? Just that we're looking at data specifically about the university, we're not inviting universities.
I thought we
were.
Yeah.
I think actually we have,
Yeah.
Emily is
Yeah.
busy.
Yeah, Emily's got her hand raised.
And I think someone.
Hey, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize when I agreed to be proxy that I would be on vacation and it would be spring break the meeting before. So I apologize about that. But yeah, my understanding of University Day, that meeting on the 10th, is that some of PACE leadership is okay to come. We have a meeting tomorrow, so I'm sharing some of this information with them then. We just have monthly meetings. I also did compile a list of the names of the student organizations as well as contact information, because I know there was talk about an external meeting, like not one of these committee meetings, but an interest compiling kind of meeting and feedback from students in general. So we have a list of contact information for that when we set up when that would be, as far as inviting those groups.
And I think we even talked about traveling around when we were doing that. So
Right.
maybe going to campus. Once school starts back up, and then going to Ellettsville and maybe having a meeting, going to the south side of town.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I could invite the college Republicans if somebody wanted to invite the college Democrats. I think it'd be good to have that perspective. If that is something, their groups, and then also maybe student government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have those, and let me see if I can pull up the spreadsheet. There's also
I have
women
it.
in, oh, sorry.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
do you have it here?
Yeah,
Um,
go ahead.
Women in government at IU, there's something called local government management that seemed that could be pertinent, Bridge USA. And I could have got, I mean, a lot of the organizations slightly are relevant, it's all kind of subjective as far as the relevance, but I didn't know exactly how, if we want to then,
Student, there are student groups that focus on voter engagement, also from a nonpartisan point of view. I really like the idea, everything I've heard, all of the above, please to invite them. I also know there are groups who focus on voter engagement, voter registration specifically.
I think that's PACE too, right?
that's PACE, yeah.
So when you talk about inviting PACE, are there students who would be coming or professors and staff or both?
It is like a steering organization, so we have, it could be a mix of both. But yeah, we have students that are actually on a steering for it,
Okay,
that could come.
thank
And
you.
there's representatives from each of like all of the there's college Republicans representatives, college Democrat representatives. But then we even have, we have a representative from the League of Women Voters, that also attends those meetings. So it's a very broad group of folks involved in that. Because I was also thinking PACE may, they might even want to hand us a list of like, this is who we really want when, we have those traveling meetings, who we really want to invite to that. They might have a lot of input there.
I think we said this one, we wanted more narrow, that way I think I'm remembering this a little bit now. I think we wanted this meeting to be a bit narrower in who we invited.
Right.
That way we could be better informed on who we wanted to
Right.
invite to our on-campus, like.
I'm
Right.
concerned with the focus constantly of students. Granted, they're one voting constituency, but they're no more elevated than any other voting constituency that we're talking about. But just think of how much time in our meetings we've talked about student voting. And I think that's too Bloomington centric. I mean, this is a Monroe County issue. What are we doing to get the same people in the rural areas engaged and getting their representatives to speak for the groups? Because otherwise, we're going to be clouded by one group that has a lot of different organizations, and people speaking, and we're not hearing from all the other groups that's out there. I don't even know what groups to reach out to. I mean, that, to be honest with you, but we seem to be very student focused, and I don't know why that is. I mean, because
I think it was because we thought we needed to get them before they leave town.
That is, yeah.
That's why we threw it on the 10th.
It was, yeah, why it's more recent.
I don't mean
yeah.
just on the 10th, but in general.
Yeah, I'm all for it like a rural day.
Carrying-
It just says we have a university day as well.
Carrying on from your point, that was the reason I asked originally. What, for different precinct percentages? Because if we've got substantially higher percentages in town campus than we do in Harrodsburg, Steinsville, et cetera, maybe we ought to think a lot more about putting centers in those areas.
Yeah. We're doing community outreach specifically in areas. I'm sorry about.
I don't know that it's, I don't have a great desire to make it easy for one group and not easy for all the groups, particularly if one group is not as engaged regularly as others are.
Yeah, and I would really like to talk to the actual voters and not somebody who claims to represent the rural voters.
Right.
Because, somebody lives in Steinsville but works in Bloomington, they might be a lot easier to
Yes.
be here.
Absolutely.
That's where we need to go to Steinsville. That's where we need to go to Ellettsville. We need to go to Harrodsburg. I truly believe we should have a meeting in those areas and invite those people.
Well, I have a vested interest in going to Unionville.
Yeah,
It's
that
been
would
like-
cover,
it's been
the
time.
northeastern part,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Well,
don't
you
disagree.
have Lake Lemon, you have all that out there.
I don't disagree.
We would have to, how many of those voters are having difficulty voting because they work in Bloomington and have to rush out there either before or after? I don't know. That's the
Why aren't they
information.
voting? That's a good question. Yeah, why aren't, yeah.
So maybe next week, if we have GIS data that, or we have data on precinct voting for next week on like what that turnout is in different regions, maybe as part of, maybe it's the second part of the day. we talk about what communities, what regions we should target next.
Yeah.
To make sure that we can get to those spaces and in a place where more people can come to
Right.
us.
I guess overall, not just this meeting, but others, I've heard students brought up more times than any other constituency. And I want to caution against that because that is just one constituency in a county of quite a
There's
few.
lots, yeah. We have a big county.
Yeah,
Yes, I think it's helpful to hear these reactions so we can figure out what we're missing.
Yeah.
And what we need to do differently and better in the content of the meetings and also where we're going. Because surprise, you may all be shocked by this, but we're not getting members of the public filling up the seats in these
Yeah.
meetings that are supposed to be publicly accessible. So we have to do something differently. I think we have talked about other groups, like I'm surprised to hear that takeaway. I don't disagree with it. I think we just have to keep making this better.
Mhm.
I don't have that takeaway. I think we've talked about other groups as well.
oh, we have, I'm just saying disproportionately students.
Well, for having talked about students, I don't feel like we've really been informed by student voter access concerns and perspectives yet.
Right.
But we're trying to get there. I think there's an earnest effort to try to get there. We have not really talked about racial equity considerations, and I have felt from my perspective, I don't want to put the cart before the horse when we're trying to get some of the basics, which we're all universally interested in to inform us, so we can be data driven and fair-minded when we're going about this. So I certainly am all for us trying to get better at this and bring
Right.
more groups into our consideration.
Yeah, and I want to also note that just because on here it says that it's University Day, doesn't mean it's going to be an agenda just like any other meeting. And so, the first 3 bullet points might be focused on that. And then we, planned out, okay, when do we want to go and do these like rural stops where we go and have our meetings in these areas? We can maybe plan that out at our April 10th meeting, and hopefully we'll have more committee members here. Cause I'm also curious to hear Hal's perspective since he's here representing a group as well. About his input and others' input on these other groups that we want to look at other than the university. Because I agree, I don't want to just focus on the university. I think we did just want to get them in here before they all leave in May, but the summer gives us a really good time when they're not here to be focusing on maybe the other members of the county that are townies and stay here year round, because there's quite a few of them.
I will tell you the biggest, from the election board perspective, the biggest obstacle to polling places on campus is IU.
Yeah.
Very few are handicap accessible. And every election, other municipals, every single election to IMU, there has been an issue. People telling candidates they can't go somewhere, telling
The shoe,
people they can't park.
the shoe.
Yes, it has been an unmitigated disaster with, we have to keep teaching them year after year, the same people, you can't do this. And,
Is the issue candidate/people/helpers or workers are you talking about?
I don't really see a worker.
Okay.
I don't know, it's like the shoot, why I say the shoot, it changes every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's a worker thing or what, but yeah, like sometimes it's the hallway, sometimes it's the hallway and the doors outside the hallway,
Right, they have
sometimes
to
it's
go
just
back
the
and show
inside of
the
the
code
room.
that, no, that's not correct.
Yeah, those things like that.
That law just changed a
It just-
little bit again.
July 1st, yeah,
And then,
the radius,
well, they've been interpreting it as radius for a while.
and now it's
so,
just codified.
Yeah,
So is that better, that it's clear now?
it's better that it's clear, but I think I was the only one raising an objection between the shoot and radius. But like Union Street, they had it there for the longest time, and I'm finally the one that nixed it because it wasn't handicap accessible. Finally, they made parking spaces handicap accessible. The day of the election, they decided to park a bunch of construction equipment in it and had scaffolding over the handicapped entrance. And it's like, but we made this agreement with you 6 to 8 months in advance. We kept following up with you. How?
So
Can this
that's been
happen?
your concern when it's a precinct.
It doesn't matter, any voting place.
It's
Any
any-
polling
When
place,
it's,
yeah.
when it's, sorry, a precinct-based polling place.
Yeah, right, you can't go to another location to vote.
Well, yeah.
Right,
That is
exactly.
Yeah, just trying to make sure.
But I'm saying that one of the reasons we're always asked why we don't have a lot more locations on campus, because there's no compliance, I mean.
It's hard to work
In
with
other
it.
words, are you saying IU sometimes is less than hospitable to voting on campus?
I'll say they're darn right
I was
antagonistic.
trying to be.
I'm not gonna be political.
Okay,
They have been antagonistic in the get-go and completely go back on their word numerous times.
Another question that, and there's zero way probably to figure this out, but if we had a vote center in conjunction with a precinct, okay, and somebody went to that needed accessibility, or maybe not, and because they hadn't kept their word, I wonder what percent of those go, heck with this, versus what percent then go somewhere. There's zero way of finding it out unless we just anecdotally.
Right. And the people that would have been
Okay.
most affected are probably gone because they graduated.
We hope.
Right.
We hope they graduated.
So I mean, those are things to consider.
And I have another kind of basic question, just granted, I assume that we are here because we think that voting is important.
Mhm.
But I'm just trying to figure out, how do you reach out to people for whom voting is something that you might do on election day? How, we could go to wherever they live, but what would motivate them to spend any time at all talking with us? about-
Usually only if they have a problem are they gonna talk to us.
If they're frustrated, with the situation that they've been in, which is weirdly the people that we want.
Or-
to see this. Like, we do want to know what's wrong.
Seen someone do it
I
too.
think,
Also,
I don't mean to sound naive when I say this. I won't be offended if you laugh at me, but I think that if people are hearing it from others in their shoes, it's always gonna land differently.
Did you say R or R?
Or if you hear anything motivational or questions, attempt at engagement from someone in their shoes. And if there is not that on our not very small committee, then it could be a matter of us being proactive about inviting someone in that day, like making a concerted effort beyond just publishing where and when it's happening, but someone who could be part of that. I hope we can do that. I know it takes effort, but I hope that could help as well.
I was gonna say as party chair, I would put this information out and like our email list, and I would hope that the other party would do the same, and perhaps League of Women Voters could help us push out that information, and other, like, we may be able to get some media attention. Maybe Dave could help us, push some of that out if we go around places too. I think we utilize our resources there.
But I think also to your point, like researching any other engagement groups that we can find in the area that might
Yeah.
not be something we associate immediately with voting.
It doesn't have to be.
I have that on the I have that to put on the agenda for next time, so that would be really good to come in with next time, is like maybe like a list of outside groups. Now, that's not saying that we're gonna be able to cover all of them, but perhaps there's.
Inviting them to, if we're going to.
That's what I was, yeah, that's what I was saying.
Exactly.
Yep.
And just,
You're talking about, I thought service groups,
yeah.
church groups.
Yep. Yep. And that may be when they're in their communities, if there's a specific church group in Ellettsville that we want their input from, we invite them, come and speak to us when we're in Ellettsville,
And
that's.
and other religious institutions.
Right, right.
I'm sorry, my church was all inclusive. Okay, okay.
Appreciate that.
Neighborhood associations.
Either ways. Yep.
Nursing homes.
Nursing homes, that's one I mentioned earlier, that's a big one. But yeah, I mean,
Most of them are okay because they can vote there,
Yeah.
but only if they change their address, their voter registration to that place.
all of absentee, get them all the same day, I feel like. Everybody from Belcher is voting this Tuesday. Yeah. So it's like a big dip in the big spike. Okay. Yeah, so I have that to add to the agenda for next time for us to talk about that. And so I think it would just be good to open the airwaves about that. And that's probably not gonna be the last time we talk about special groups, because I think we're all gonna keep having those ideas spark in our heads about, oh, yeah, I forgot about that group.
Well, and honestly, we can invite them. Not every single group has to speak, right?
Absolutely.
Most of the time, in most of the places that we're going, hopefully it will just be a community of people that live in that area that are representative of a large diversity of that area that can speak to their experiences.
Yep.
And So yeah, it's,
We do have
it's,
public comment that doesn't get
Well,
utilized.
we could also too, we all know groups that probably in our head that we probably want to reach out to. If we do and they don't want to come, ask them to email us.
Mhm.
We can read that for the record, enter it for the record, so we still have their input.
yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, written testimonials would be great. Honestly, for some groups that we can't necessarily schedule to get in or something like that, that would be, get a lot more input that way.
And one thing I'm really glad, I like what the group's doing. We're not saying we don't want to hear from that group. Well, it's, hey, come on.
We
We wanna
literally
hear-
want everyone,
Exactly.
anybody and everybody.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's a group of 2 people, whatever.
Yeah.
At this point, we just want input. And I think that needs to be a consistent theme from us too, is like, I don't care if you're a group of
The three,
2 or 20,000, like.
the 3 voters in Richland 9. The
Yeah,
3 voters in
yeah.
Richland 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
It's
that's.
pretty on a poll. There, and yeah, I was about to say, there's one person that we had vote last year from Polk.
Yeah. Invite that person.
Yep.
Love to hear from them. Give them a sticker. My God, let's get them something. Yeah.
Starter,
Pizza, whole pizza just for that
referral program.
person. Yeah.
Well, but again, there's a reason people out there aren't.
Yeah, we need to get at that.
Okay, there's a reason.
Exactly, yeah. And if the vote center can solve that for them, then we want to get them in the room to tell them.
Right.
Exactly.
But I don't want to make the assumption without finding other stuff out.
Right.
I think we're on the same.
Yeah, because if a vote center is not going to be the solution to that,
Then we
if
gotta
it's a
figure it.
language barrier, if it's something else, that is an additional thing that we can look at, but it's not gonna be solved.
And I think it's critical for us not to lead them and say, hey, if this happened, would you vote more? Because there may be other reasons they're not comfortable sharing, and they're just go, yeah, that's it. And
Yeah.
that may be bad data. So probing question, what prevents you from voting? And then we get the information.
I think we're gonna have a lot of these, after we review our, and I think that that was the phases that we were talking about last time too, is reviewing our data and then moving on to getting our public input before we go into a draft stage. And I think that public input period is gonna be probably longer than our data period, and I think that's what we want. I think that's a good look.
It would be
for us.
great if people just started coming.
Yeah.
Like, and we haven't obviously
Anytime,
done the work
yes.
to get a lot of people in yet, but with starting next week, or the next time we meet, we should have a group of students in
Yes.
here at least.
It's just be us.
So hopefully from that point on, we will continually have people who are outside of this committee in this room talking to us and giving us feedback.
Yeah, April 24th will be viewing the election equipment.
Yeah, so we'll be outside of this room.
Yeah, that'll be a good day. And then, yeah, we go straight into like special groups and testimonials and stuff after that. So yeah, I foresee that being the case as well. Which would be great.
Can I want to go backward for a minute and ask a quick question to those who shared helpful insights about voting at IU. Do you think it would be helpful to, is this on topic or off topic, to tee any of that up for a conversation at the next meeting? At the April 10th meeting?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be partly about.
I don't know how, because the same people over and over again give promises and they fail on them. And they'll say whatever they need to for us to do whatever they want, have it a vote place. But when it comes down to election day is when we have a problem. And it's always a problem. I can't think of an election day I have not had a call, either being on the election board or even as vice chair or chair, a problem at IMU or union with someone doing something wrong. And I'm not a poll workers, it's usually the inspector telling candidates you can't be here or you can't talk to these people. And, oh, we won't do it again. And then, oh, you can't park there. Handicap parking was the biggest one for the IMU. And then we talked to them 3 days beforehand, and then they put no parking signs up where the handicap parking was.
So is
I mean-
Pace, like, have you,
Pace we've talked to,
oh,
and they says, yeah, well, they were on, that's why we were gonna,
they should be knowing that you all have raised that with them.
yes.
And there's always an issue between, as a student, there's always an issue between student groups and administration because they are not the same whatsoever. And even professors in the administration are not the same whatsoever. So I mean, there's a huge disconnect there and I don't know how we.
As for one, we weren't even gonna have any on IU campus because they refused to make them accessible.
Yeah.
I mean, it was to the point where the IMU was a compromise, and it's been honestly, it's probably the worst decision I made as an election board, because I actually believed that they would do it. and honor their commitments. And so far, in not one election have they.
It's just disappointing. It's a public university, so you'd hope
It
that they
is.
want voter engagement on their campus.
Yeah,
and that would
that,
be it.
and like, we tried reaching out to them this election again to find another location. And
Yeah.
we basically got turned down on every single one that would have been a better result or a better location. And they're just like, no, you can't have it.
It's like a
No, you
vote
can't
center is
have it."
not gonna solve that problem.
No.
Kylie, off the top of your head, and this is off the top of your head, between 3rd and 17th and, what streets would be our east-west mostly, I guess, Indiana. And what would be the farthest east? How many precincts are in that rectangle?
I have precinct map. Hold on.
Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, is it 5? Is it 10?
I would think it's 4 or 5. That's what-
I would tell you-
Okay, so it's 4 or 5.
I think they all kind of corner up there in the
Yeah.
middle of the campus, but Kylie's gonna take care of that.
One thing, IU, I'll give them credit, they do want students voting.
Mhm.
What they don't want is students' access to candidates. That's what they always stifle.
Really?
Yes,
Interesting.
That is kind of the caveat, yeah.
yes,
Because it's hard for the candidates, not necessarily the students.
right.
And, but on the flip side of that, it's also hard for, like, the
Handicapped
handicap
students, yep,
issues
exactly.
are also hard for students.
Yep.
Well, and I think what Kylie is talking, I'm not always sympathetic to candidates, but what Kylie is talking about doesn't seem to be like coming from a candidate point
No.
of view.
Oh, yeah, it's just,
Coming from an election administration.
She- she's-
yeah, it's hard on that
They're
end
doing-
as well.
They're doing the same thing we did
Thank you,
when we
Kylie.
found
I don't want to make it hard. I'm trying to, if we didn't have anything on campus,
Yes.
how many have to move?
Yeah.
Or
Or do we have a vote
Or
center?
is there a vote center
That's,
at,
Check that out.
at Wildermuth or somewhere?
Yeah.
Right. No, we had
I guess
the
that's
same
all.
issue, and IMU was the only one that,
What is
they
that?
did offer a couple places,
Field house. downtown.
like the stadium or assembly hall, but it was like they would, the hours, they were limited, like we
What
can't.
streets?
And also, that's really not what the student club are.
Right, and then
Because IMU
Indiana
gives
too.
better services to students than,
That's not-
so then we started thinking, where
Well, I would.
where
I
we
would
get the
try to
most
give up.
students with.
Yeah, no, I think you're about right.
Campus.
Yeah, of course.
I consider campus.
Okay, so for North Union Street, it's right here on
Mhm.
the line, so we're at B18.
B5,
B5. B6.
B1 looks a little bit in there.
I can't remember which precinct, I think it's.
But we're talking 5 or 6.
A couple, for
Okay.
sure.
Okay,
Let's say right around 5 to 6.
okay.
Cause I know IU itself right now currently has 3 precincts.
And it's,
And I
And
knew
then
it.
some of their precincts are even going to Election Central because of the fact that we couldn't have a second location this year from IU because there was just no cooperation
Yeah, because
or willingness to help or anything whatsoever with that.
on the midterm and presidential years, they have to have 2 almost.
Yeah.
And
We needed to, but
turnout's been so low at the
Yeah.
IMU too.
Yeah.
Like turnout at the IMU has
It's
been
been
very low the last couple.
is that because people are mostly voting absentee on campus, do we think? Or is that big, then,
Good question.
because the precincts are just like the 3 that are in IU, are they just on IU's campus? Or are they like also people that are not going to IU, just happen to live?
there's some on the outer parts of campus
And
that
they
are
have to
still
go on
part of
campus.
there and they have to go onto campus in order to vote and they don't want to because either they have to pay for parking or if they don't have to pay for parking, then they have to walk 5-6 blocks before they can even get to the IMU.
Yeah.
And then there's tons of people that are complaining constantly about signage at IU. There's just not enough signage. Like we physically can't put more signage.
So the idea would
Wherever
actually
it
be
to be
a
there.
vote center that encapsulates those people outside of.
Yep,
Right.
and so that was one thing that we were looking at. We were looking at closer to like the IU football complex because we used them in 2020 when for the COVID. During the whole pandemic, we used there. And then we had also contacted right across the road, the Marching Hundred Hall. Marching Hundred Hall would have been perfect. They had plenty of handicap parking. They had a actually fairly large parking lot. And then they had 4 entrances with ramps. It would have been perfect, but they basically refused and said, no, we're not available.
Are you talking about the new hall they built?
Yeah.
They also have still class that day too, so.
Well, yes, Yes.
virtually.
And as far as the football stadium and the like, it's still football season.
Yeah, and we've
So,
had it work in the past, so that's always been like one thing where it's like, we would like to go back there because it's a bigger area. It would be a better location in general, but we've basically just been turned away multiple times ever since we've tried to go back. IMU is one of our only ones within IU that we've been able to use, and then we end up getting stuck with people complaining about it every year. And it's something different where it's sometimes the exact same thing. It just,
We also have a large concentration of students off campus now too, like the apartments that we're building, like
Yeah.
evolve everywhere.
Yeah.
How many students are there that aren't voting on campus? Cause that's, I mean, so that's a whole nother thing now too. We have some out by the mall, we have some everywhere. Nobody really lives on campus these days,
yeah.
other than freshmen.
4,000 bedrooms Chick-fil-A on East.
Yeah.
Just open.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I live
you
on
gotta
this side
think
of town. I've never
Part
voted.
of that is nothing but student
Well,
yeah,
and
they
it's
have
also
the
ones
ones
that,
that,
students who live
out there.
out there, and then a vote center just off campus for people who are living in the precinct that don't want to go on campus. Like, that feels like a good solution for, a big cluster problem.
All right. We're almost to 6. I know some people need to get out of here a little earlier today, so I want to make sure we get through what we need to get through. Is there anything else on the calendar?
I just want to identify for myself, action stuff for next time. I will put together some of the information that's at least to a map of some kind for us to look at visualization. And if I am feeling extra ambitious, I'll even pull out the student data because I know we'll be looking at that. Cool.
That's April 24th is next time we're gonna get.
April 10th.
Let me move that.
We always made it.
Maybe, I'm so sorry.
You're fine.
I did.
We should be able to come.
I did the exact same.
By
thing.
then.
We'll see.
Well, because I was
lying on the 10th,
While
right?
you're signing
Like,
it.
Yeah.
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 Because we have early voting that starts the day after the eclipse. I'm just like,
The election board has given us the authority to move things even when we're not needing to. If for some reason we need to, we can talk about that via email. If that comes
Yeah, I
up.
think-
I'm very much hopeful that after the 8th.
It'd be interesting to see the motel occupancy for Monday night and Tuesday night, so 8 and 9.
Yeah.
How long are we going to be stuck at home?
Yeah.
I think most of them are checking out. Well,
On Monday night.
Tuesday morning.
Tuesday morning.
Yeah, I have to work an event on the eclipse and it's gonna be interesting to see what it is like to get there.
Best wishes.
You just totally off the record. IU Event Services is having the thing at the stadium. They're literally offering student workers an extra $100 over their paid work
Yeah.
because nobody's signing up.
I would love to know how they're going to get, crowd control with the streets and stuff.
All right.
Because state police will not.
Let's move through this and then we can talk about that after we.
Yes, I'm
Yep,
sorry.
I just want to get us out of here. Sorry, guys. Committee member comment or update? Do we have any of that?
So I'll be making the update on our behalf at the election board meeting next week. Thank you. I have a sense of it from some of the specific things we've talked about today. I kept it short last time. Anything, any input anyone has about that at this time? If not,
I think it's just,
that's fine with me.
keep reiterating to them that we're doing, we're trying. We're trying. I think our calendar, I think they're gonna like, I think they like that. I think they like that we've planned ourselves
I
ahead.
have an updated version. I'll print it out before then.
Okay, I'll try and get that to you.
So-
That's
It's not till next Thursday.
next Thursday.
It's just that we won't be meeting.
Okay,
We won't be meeting again before then, but it's still a little ways away.
Okay.
also, if you want to get me any information that you want to share to the election board the Tuesday before a meeting, I have meetings with John Hernandez, that Tuesday before to prepare for the meeting.
Great.
So he'd like to look over that.
Good to know.
all right. That, are we good on committee member comment and update? To adjourn,
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor?
Bye.
Bye.
Any opposed? Cool.